We are joined now by former U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, Michael Moore. Michael, good to have you this morning.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
So can you describe the law to us and what would be required to prove that the former president broke the law? One, by taking documents, any documents that need to be preserved by law as presidential records out of the White House. But two, if those documents he took contain classified materials. What's the law here?
Well, he's supposed to, as the executive, to maintain his records, and that's to go to the public archives, the National Archives, and so that's a fairly clear obligation on his part. It's the destruction of the records that would be more troublesome, I think, to a prosecutor. And certainly, if there are classified documents in there, I listened to the prior segment. It had to stop myself from laughing to get on when I'm hearing about his papers in the toilet. You know, some would argue that's probably the best place for it to be, but it's a clear indication to me of an effort, an intentional effort to destruct documents that he didn't want somebody else to see. I mean, what else do you do but flush them down the toilet? You know, so that to me may give the prosecution, whether or not the department's going to have the appetite for this prosecution or to even make an investigation or inquiry, it's something else. You remember that there was a lot of flack caught over the Hillary Clinton email scandal and whether or not there were classified things on it, and then criticism on whether or not the efforts to open an investigation, we all remember the famous Comey discussions, influenced the election in some way. And so we're coming up close now on congressional elections. We're not far from the ongoing, presidential election season, and that's going to be something they'll have to put into the calculus.
But is an appetite for opening an investigation sort of the litmus, the bar for the DOJ to do just that, if in fact laws may have indeed been broken?
Well, the problem with the past administration is that there are no more norms. Things that should be normal and should be a matter of course don't exist anymore. And so while it should not be the bar on whether or not they have an appetite for it, they will have to calculate into whether or not they think that their efforts may influence an election. There's longstanding Department of Justice policy not to do something that appears to influence an election in one way or another, to tip the scales or put your finger on the scales for one side or the other. That's why we don't charge elected officials, even on the local level, right before an election cycle. So, again, it's tough to charge a president. We don't know actually, too, if he may have declassified the documents. I think the latest reporting is we don't know whether or not as he left the White House. We know that they found these boxes there at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, I mean, the timing is different. The Comey announcement was within a couple of weeks of the election. This is more than 2.5 years out. I do want to talk about the January 6th committee investigation here, because this gets beyond January 6th to the broad efforts to overturn the election. Peter Navarro, latest target of a subpoena. This is what he said publicly about efforts post November 3rd, and I want to get your reaction here. Have a listen.
The plan was simply this. We had over 100 congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill ready to implement the sweep. We were going to challenge the results of the election in the 6 battleground states. These were the places where we believed that if the votes were sent back to those battleground states and looked at again, that there would be enough concern amongst the legislatures that most or all of those states would decertify the election.
I mean, the fact is, as we know, there was no evidence of widespread fraud here.
Correct.
Did he just describe in public an illegal effort to overturn the election? Does he face legal consequences for that?
I think he does describe it in public, and I think that's one of the things that happens. You're seeing with former administration officials and confidants that they can't withhold themselves from getting on social media, podcasts, broadcasts, writing books, this kind of thing, actually outlining the conduct. That's why his comments about executive privilege and whether or not he'll testify before the January 6th committee are laughable. I mean, he's essentially taken the executive privilege or any claim for it and thrown it down the toilet again. And he need to do little more than read the recent Supreme Court opinion about the records from the National Archives and in upholding the appellate court decision. And 8 of the 9 justices, excluding Clarence Thomas, they allowed these records to go forth to the committee, finding that this investigation was a legitimate legislative purpose.
Yeah.
You can't invoke executive privilege, and so it allows the co-equal branches to function.
Michael Moore, thank you, and hopefully this will bring it into our toilet references, at least for this hour. Thank you. We appreciate you coming on.
Glad to be with you.
Unfortunately, literally and figuratively.
Yes, exactly.
Well, coming up next.